Sewing machines will work properly when they're threaded correctly. There are a couple things I want to make sure that you know how to correctly thread a machine and put the bobbin in, and I will guarantee it is going to work. So a couple tips along the way we'll mention, but the Singer Simple is actually just that. It's very simple to thread and wind the bobbin. So speaking of thread, one of the things you want to do is make sure you are using a good quality thread. I will tell you, cheap and inexpensive thread, and I'm going to say it, for example, if you get it at Walmart, not the best. Now, better than, you just need new thread. And so don't go into Grandma's sewing box that she gave you 30 years ago, because that thread's even older, but good quality thread will make a difference. So make sure if you're having trouble, change the thread, see if that will help you get a better result. So this thread is going to go on, and then we're going to pull out a spool cap. There's a large one and a small one. Since this has a larger end, I'm going to put on the larger spool cap. Bobbins are specific for the machine. So if you, once again, have bobbins that are different size or they're metal, not plastic, it is crucial you use the bobbin that is designed for this machine. So no mixing and matching. There's also a little hole in that bobbin. You can kind of see it. So I am going to show you how we thread the thread from the inside to out on that hole. As you start off, you'll find that there is a guide on the top for your thread. You want to follow the dotted lines. So as you see where the dotted lines are, we're going to take our thread and hook them into the guides. This part is the most important part. So it's a little kind of spring action, and you want to find, you go around it clockwise, and you got to click it in. You hear that little click? This is the pre-tensioner to getting the thread to wind tightly on the bobbin. If you go around it and don't click it in, you get a bobbin that feels really loose and fluffy. Don't use that bobbin. You really want to make sure that you have a nice wind to the thread going onto the bobbin. So I'm going to take the thread, and from the inside to out in that hole I mentioned, I'm taking the thread and I'm pulling up the thread from that top. When you push this all the way down and then push this over, when you hold the thread straight up, which I am, even though you don't see me, I'm holding it straight up, not letting go. As I step on the foot control, the bobbin's going to wind and start to fill. Eventually I can stop. Ooh, that's fast. All right, so I can stop and actually cut this thread, or I can keep holding on to it till it breaks. I would recommend that you stop and cut, because you don't want any leftover tail coming up through that bobbin. You need it nice and clean. So go ahead and wind your bobbin. You will find that it will slow down as it fills up, and you kind of notice the thread kind of going up and down, and you can see how nice and tight that is. So again, no fluffy bobbins. That's the pre-tensioner doing its job. You'll notice when I go to thread the machine, we do not use this in any other part. Here it goes. See how it's slowing down? So slide the bobbin back, cut your thread, and this bobbin is ready to be put into the bobbin case. Sometimes I go straight from the bobbin down to the bobbin area. So notice you do take off the accessory box, and that exposes the free arm of the machine. So if you're ever doing anything that is like a pant leg or a hem, you can slide it right onto that. So if you become left-handed, here's the trick. Left-handed, take that little lever with your left index finger. Ah, yes, there's even an empty bobbin that came with the machine in the accessory box. So you do have a total of 4 bobbins that come with this machine. Okay, so here's the key to the bobbin case. When you drop it into the bobbin into the bobbin case, you want the thread to be coming off the right side. See how if I pull it, it spins clockwise? So once you spin it clockwise, it will drop right into this little groove, and then if you hold on to the top, bring the thread down until it clicks right into this little C area. I kind of slid the thread between or in that gap all the way down. Now it doesn't matter if your thread is on the right or left of that little finger, but I will show you a trick. If you just flip it over right now, that bobbin's going to fall out. But if you remember being left-handed, so all you left-handers, the sewing machine is made for you. If you become left-handed by taking your left index finger, holding that little latch out, this finger should be kind of in the upward position, it locks the bobbin in so it doesn't accidentally fall out. On the flip side, if you're holding on to it, wondering why it's not coming out, that's why, because it's locking it in. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm putting that little finger kind of on the top. There's a home for it to sit in. So make sure it goes all the way in and that finger locks into position. There's a little home for it to sit in. You can see it right there. Leave the door open, leave this tail right here. When we thread the machine, I'll show you how you bring the bobbin thread up right before we stitch. So we're going to undo the top, and then we're following now the numbers with the solid line. So first here, then behind this little groove. Next, here is the most important part. Make sure your presser foot is up. Without it up, the tension discs are not open. But when they are, when the foot is up, they're open and the thread is ready to go in here. Here is a common problem. A lot of people set this thread so gently in here, it never goes deep enough for the tensions to actually engage. And then when you sew, you get those big hairy loops on the bottom of your fabric. That's the problem. Okay, so take your thread at the top, take your thread you're holding and pull down and come down. Follow that groove, come up at 4, and if you want, you could even do a little floss. Guarantees to thread this machine correctly. Make sure if you've turned the hand wheel that this is kind of at that top position. This is the take-up lever. Come in on the right, over, down on the left, and that will hook it right into this little slot. There is a guide right at the top of the needle. It's open at the right side, and then you will find you will need to thread your needle. If you have trouble, there are handheld needle threaders that you can purchase separately, but this will work. Okay, so to bring the bobbin thread up before starting to stitch, hold the thread in your left hand. Take your hand on the hand wheel. We always turn this towards us, so we're taking one full stitch. Needle goes down. You can even see it kind of wrapping around there. And then bring this take-up lever to the highest position. I'll talk a lot about this as I stitch. If you start and stop with this at the highest position, you're stitching as you start and stop from project or fabric to fabric. It'll always start correctly. That's like the beginning of the stitch. So make sure you always bring that all the way up to the top. Here is the loop of our bobbin thread, so I'm going to just pull it out, take both the threads down between the foot and out to the back side. If you want, you can put this back into place, just kind of slide it on, it all lines up, give it a little tap, and when we sew, take a piece of fabric, fold it in half, slide it underneath the presser foot, lower the presser foot onto the fabric, and just make sure you're on a straight stitch, maybe 2.5 for stitch length, and you don't even have to hold the thread. We are good to go. So once again, I kind of showed you how to start and stop. So if you need to reverse or lock the stitches, just hold that down. So right now the needle is up, but just make sure that the take-up lever is at the highest position, and then you can raise up the presser foot. There's actually a little thread cutter off to the side, so you can go from front to back or back to front, and you can cut the threads. So what we're looking for is a nice even stitch where you can't tell which side of the fabric you stitch through. Now I do actually see that there, and I'm kind of glad I stitched on a piece of fabric first, there's still a little oil left from shipping this machine, and I can see that with these little dark dots. So what I'm going to do next is just take and I'm going to sew until I don't have any of that oil coming up on my fabric. So just a couple of passes back and forth. We'll definitely take that out, but you will see that when you start off, sometimes on a new machine. So even here, watch this. We're going to go back and forth. All right. It sounds good. If your machine is sounding like it's purring, that means you have threaded it correctly. So again, I'll do a few more passes, kind of get that oil to kind of work itself out. It's already doing just that, as you see the dark stitch from the first, and now back to my normal color of thread. Who's ready to get started? There's a ton of stitches that we can work with, plus all those accessories, and we got to teach you how to clean and maintain this machine so it treats you nice for years to come.